I am a no-code software engineer, and lately I've been asking myself so many uncomfortable questions. Questions such as, is no code just a joke? Is no code just a hype? Is no code just a shortcut that set founders up for failure? These are not just random thoughts, by the way. These are questions that I keep coming across in so many YouTube videos where people debunk no code, call it just a hype, call it a shortcut that will set you up for failure at the end. And that is why I decided to make this video where I'm going to share with a lot of people out there a practical working real world system that I have used with my client for the past 10 years to ship successfully so many SaaS applications. And this system is something that I believe is missing. It's something that a lot of founders out there who are jumping to use no code are missing, which is the reason why a lot of them end up failing or end up failing to launch the application. And then instead of people to sit back and assess what's really happening or what really went wrong, what majority of people do is they just blame the platform. They just put all the resentment on the platform and just say the platforms or the no code as a platform is not the best or is not good. You understand? And I don't blame them a lot because sometimes marketing hype causes a lot of these issues. Why? Because some of the platforms don't really market really what you can do and what you cannot do with their platforms. I myself that I'm sharing this with you, I have had my own share of bad experiences with a lot of the tools. You can talk of Wix, you can talk of Lovable, you can talk of bolt.new. I have had my own fair share of experiences. And unlike other founders who just put their frustrations on the platform, what I did was I sat back and I reviewed and understood clearly the cause of the issues. And I can tell you clearly that the cause of the issues or the reason why a lot of people think no code is just a hype or a shortcut that doesn't work is because a lot of people out there misunderstand the whole concept of no code. So before we get into details, I want to let you know that Wix.com, bolt.io, or Lovable, and a lot of the other no-code platforms out there, they both have their own limits. They would have their own capacities, what they can do and what they cannot do. I can remember about 4 or 5 years ago, we tried building a SaaS application using Wix.com, and it got to a point we couldn't even open the editor because our application became too big, and then it was bigger than what a Wix editor can actually even contain. The same thing, I can remember 3 years ago, we tried building a SaaS application using bolt.io, and that application became too big for the system, only for the computer I was using, not for the bolt.io. And then I had to go and buy a bigger computer with better RAM management to be able to even access the editor and be able to make changes. And what all these experiences made me understand or realize is that all of these platforms, they have their own limitations. And a lot of people do not do their due diligence to find out what can be done in these platforms and what cannot be done in these platforms before they start building their application. It's very important for you to have a technical partner along the way so that this person can help you find the technical aspect of your idea, what needs to come together right from the back end and the front end to make this possible. Then you review the platforms of your choice. If it is Lovable, if it is bolt.new, if it is Claude, if it is bolt.io, if it is Wix, if it is Webflow, you review all these platforms and understand their limitations, what can be done, what cannot be done with these platforms, so that you can know how far can this platform take you before you have to maybe fully write your own app using the normal code, be it React, Native, and etc. You understand? Why am I sharing this with you? So like I told you, I'm also a no-code software engineer. And there was a time when I was also feeling frustrated. Okay. Like I told you, I also had my own fair share of bad experiences using these platforms. And I had my own frustration. And to the extent that I had to even go and actually learn and master an actual programming language, which is React and the React Native. And then that is because I felt like no code was just a hype. So at the time I was also thinking and feeling like no code was just a hype. It can't really build a real world application. Okay, this is about 4 or 5 years ago. I was feeling that way. So I had to go and learn how to do actual programming to be able to feel safe and secure in the job market. And then later I realized that no, I was completely wrong. And I'm telling you that if you are out there thinking that no code or low code is a complete hype, it doesn't work, it doesn't build real world applications, I'm telling you that you are completely wrong. I have launched with clients a lot of SaaS applications using no code to date, and it is working. And the system I'm going to share with you is something that you don't want to miss. So at any time you're watching this video, you can check in the comment section if you want to download this guide. I have a whole slide deck that I prepared that I believe a founder should have to familiarize themselves with before they venture building any application in a no-code system. So after you open this slide deck, you realize that one of the first point I spoke about is why most SaaS products fail. This is very important because before we start laying the groundwork on what is the right way to build a SaaS product using a no code, we have to first of all understand what was the wrong way that previous founders tried building SaaS products using no code system so that we can avoid their mistakes whilst learning the new way on how to build it. And you can see that I simply put everything down to just 5 simple key takeaways. And these are very strategic takeaways, okay? Why? Because a lot of no code don't really fail because of technical issues, but because of strategic mistakes. Okay, now you can see that the first thing I pointed out here in the paper is that people tend to build before validating the demand of their ideas. You know, before no code or low code and this vibe coding, before all these things came into existence, there were not a lot of founders or tech founders out there. Why? Because a lot of people have the mindset that it's very expensive to employ dev experts and it's difficult to write the code yourself. But then with the introduction of no code and low code, now everybody think they are founders. Everybody believe they could also do something. You understand? Everybody just feel like they can do it, and they end up what rushing to do it without knowing what they are going into, whether it is something that people want or people don't even want. That is why one of the first important point here is that people tend to build before validating the demand for their idea. And I have worked on a lot of projects. I have worked with a lot of clients that are suffering with this problem. Even if we launch the product, even if we launch this SaaS application, you realize that there is no demand for the idea they are trying to sell. And that is what made me realize that on the top of the reasons why a lot of no code or SaaS product fail is because a lot of people tend to build without validating demand for the idea. In my survey, I was able to come down to the conclusion that whilst founders have 70% expectations with regards to the demand for their products, they end up meeting sometimes 25% actual demand, or sometimes even way less than 25% actual demand. And then the second most important point here is that people or no code founders tend to build too many features without clear value. And this is because they feel like we are not writing any code, we are just vibing with an AI, or we are just generating a code, or we are just drag and dropping things. We can build in faster than a traditional coder would build things. So let's just build everything. Let's just put in a lot of features. I once worked with a client that told me that, Ishak, let's put a lot of features so that a user cannot refuse not to use our product. A user should always find something or a reason to use our product. You see, and this is the problem. Or because they feel like because I'm not writing code, you can ship things faster. And this is a very huge problem that I want to avoid because shipping or building too many features without any clear value is not the way. You're just going to end up wasting your time and your money. And then the third most important point here is that lack of development roadmap. Okay, and I can tell you that in my before I started deploying this system, before I started sharing this system with my clients, I can tell you that about 80% of the clients that have worked in the past did not come with any development roadmap. They just come with the idea of head, hey, this and that is what I need. Or now with the AI, they just go and tell AI, and AI can write a description of the job they want, and they just give a description of the job that this is what they want build, these are the key features, and the rest is up to you, the developer. And I'm telling you that if you're a no-code SaaS founder out there, I'm telling you that you need to have a development roadmap if you really want to see your application succeeding. And the fourth important thing here is that a lot of no-code founders end up spending money without feedback loops. So you're just paying for hours of development. You are just paying for a lot of designers or UI UX designers and the developers without having any feedback loop. You know, when we're talking about feedback loop, generally we are going back to the we are going back to the development roadmap itself. So it kind of connects with the last 3 points here. The feedback loop here is talking about what is working. The money you are putting in developing things, have you tested what you have developed so far? Are people liking it? Before you start spending money in developing something else. This is one of the mistakes a lot of those people make. And then the last thing is that founders burn out from uncontrolled development. So you can see it also once again interconnect. Because we lack the feedback loop, because we lack a roadmap, you are just developing anything anyhow. And at the end of the day, as a founder, you will feel tired and stressed, and that is where you find yourself in a situation where you have to scrap the project uncompleted and undelivered and just call it a day. And that is the problem. And that is why a lot of those people end up putting the blame on the no code platforms instead of blaming themselves for not understanding what they want to build, how to build it, and which platform to use, and what are the limits on each platform. So now that we have fully understand why so many SaaS products fail to launch, let's get into the most important cycle for developing a no-code platform. So I call this one the SaaS life cycle, and this is something that most people skip. Okay, every SaaS product that successfully launched passed through the same 4 life cycles. These are the idea and problem validation cycle, the MVP and feature planning cycle, the iterative development cycle, and the launch, learn, improve cycle. These are the 4 most important cycles that if you are a founder, you need to understand clearly on how to use them. This is a cycle that has to continue going in motion. So far as your product is operational, so far as your product is out there, either under development or launched, this cycle must have to continue. And this cycle is the difference between platforms or products that innovate and products that do not innovate. Okay, now let's take these circles one by one at a time to go into details about each one to understand how you can deploy each one of these circles into your app development. Now, the first one, idea and problem validation. All right. So at this stage, you are not building the products. Okay, you're not building a product. You're just validating a pain. Okay, so I took 4 key points here that I want to talk about. Okay, you realize that in this sheet or in this slide, you realize that the first point I said is that you need to identify one painful problem, okay, and then you need to define who feels the pain of the problem, and then understand the current workarounds around that problem, and then validate willingness to switch or pay. Now, before you start selling anything, you need to validate. Remember, one of the mistakes a lot of people make is that they start building without validating demand for their product. Now, before you start building any SaaS application, you need to validate there is a demand for your application. So I use pain to identify this. Let's say you go to a village and then you see a lot of people walking barefooted, and then you see very few people walking with slippers on or with shoes on, or you approach those walking barefooted to understand their pain. As in, why do they decide to walk barefooted? Number one. So, it's because shoes are very expensive. We can't afford to buy these shoes. So you see, you identify a painful problem. So this is a painful problem for them. And then you understand who feels the pain. The people who feel the pain are the ones who cannot afford to buy the shoes because the shoes are expensive. And then what are the current workaround? The current workaround is available. You're not inventing anything new, okay? You're not inventing anything new. The current workaround is that there are shoes there. Some people wear the shoes. It's just that it's what? Too expensive. And then you ask yourself, can you build a shoe that will be very cheap enough for the average person that cannot afford the current workaround to pay you to buy your shoe? Because they would want to wear slippers or shoe as well. You understand? So this is what the current stage is talking about. And I believe this is something not just with the shoe manufacturing, even for a SaaS product, whatever application you are building, before you start building and writing a single line of code, you need to run this market survey and market analysis, which I call the idea and problem validation, because it's going to help you understand if there is a demand for your application or if there is no demand for what you're trying to build. If there is a demand for what you're trying to build, you have to understand the extent of the demand And are people willing to switch? Let's say you are building or you want to build a better version of, let's say, Facebook. Are people willing to leave Facebook or use Facebook and then use your application as well because you are offering something better? When you tell your friend about an application that you want to build and your friends tells you that, oh, nice idea, it's because they are your friends. It doesn't validate anything, okay? Or you get a lot of likes, comment, and retweets on something you post online is not a validation, okay? It's not a validation. Surveys without real conversation also is not a validation. If I go right now on my Facebook wall and I type that, hey, I want to build an application that can do ABC, what do you think? And people just comment, yeah, nice idea, nice idea. That is not a validation as well. Real validation sounds like a frustration. It sounds emotional. It sounds urgent. If people are already complaining about the problem, they won't care enough to use your product. And that is how a survey feels like. All right. If people are ready to talk about the problem, they are expressing their frustration about something, they will not care to use your products. Now let's move to the second point, which is the MVP feature planning. Okay. Now, let's kill another myth here. Okay. An MVP is not a smaller version of your dream. I want you to know that. An MVP is not a smaller version of your dream. An MVP is a learning tool. The job of an MVP is to answer one question. Should this product exist? That is the job of an MVP. Should this product exist? Okay, is your MVP doing too much or you're already in trouble? That is clearly what an MVP need to answer. So you can see that in this slide, I have also 4 key points that I want you to pay very close attention to, which are you need to have clear value propositions. Okay, because remember, whilst building your MVP, you're also what planning for your features of the application. So whilst putting those plans, you need to have what clear value proposition. You need to have one core user journey, and then you need to have one measurable success metric, and you need to have from point A to point B development roadmap. Very, very, very important. Before you start writing a single line of code, make sure you and your tech partner, you have already written down from point A to point B development roadmap. That is very important. So every SaaS product should start with one dominant user journey. One user, one job, one outcome. If you try to survive multiple journeys too early, complexity will explode your application and nothing will feel complete because you are starting something, you stop halfway and move to another thing, stop halfway and move to another thing. So what you will find out is that you have so many incompleted features. So you want to keep it very simple. One of the first things I always like to tell my clients is that when building a roadmap, stage one is what? Sign up and log in. That is it. We're done with that. You check it. We go and test it vigorously. We can log in and sign up, log in and sign up, log in and sign up. All is good before we move to another thing, account settings, before we move to permissions, before we move to notification, before we move to language. So we are putting down a roadmap and then you are checking in the box gradually. Why is this very important? This is very important because it means that even at that stage, you can release your application to some select group of people that, hey, this is the application we're building, but so far you can sign up, you can create your account, you can add permissions, and you can send notifications. But in the future, we are going to bring in ability to chat with your team members and etc. Following this approach, make your application testable, ready to launch at any given point in time because any feature that you are building is already up and running and it is working. That feature is not waiting for something else before it can work. And this is what I, as a software engineer, I call a modular approach to software development. And that is how I approach everything I'm building. Modular approach. You should be able to plug things, unplug things without breaking the entire application. This makes things very easy and it makes your application really scalable in the long run. So when we're building your application, the second circle you need to take care of is make sure that you have very clear value proposition, you have very clear development roadmap, and of course you need to be very disciplined. Okay, this is where most founders would end up overspending. Okay, they add a lot of features just in case, but features don't create value, outcomes do create value. All right, you need to be very disciplined. And once again, like I told you, this is supposed to continue in a circular method. It's not from point one to point B, or it's not from A, B, C, D. No, it has to continue. Even after you launch your application, if you want to add a new feature, this new feature needs to pass through the same four cycles. So the first stage, idea validation, this new feature you want to add, is this something that your users would love to have? You validate it, then you move to an MVP and feature planning section, and you deploy everything we've learned in that section as well before you move to the third circle, which is the iterative development. Now, this is where no code gets blamed unfairly. Okay, long development cycles with no feedback will fail you, whether you are using no code or traditional coding. And whilst there are a lot of no code applications that have failed to launch, there are also millions of code applications that have also failed to launch. But they don't know it because they are not coders. So they feel like it's only happening with no code. Iterative development will help protect you from overbuilding and overspending. And to avoid that, I have put 4 key points that I want you to pay very close attention to when you are developing your application. The first one, I say build in small, controlled circles. Never build chunk of features. Get the modular approach. Know how to build in a modular method. Take chunk of things. Okay, like I said, account sign up. You can sign up using email address, using Google, using Facebook, using other socials. Instead of building whole complete, start with the email first. When the email work, then the next chunk that you put in, or the next puzzle that you fit in, would be how to sign up using your Google account. Then how to sign up using your GitHub account, something like that. Not as in you always want to have the full package. No, make sure you can break development, feature development into chunks or stages or modular puzzles that you can fit in one by one to get you a complete feature, so that when sign up using Google is not working, it is not going to break sign up using email address or sign up using Facebook. And that's why this is very important. And then I said you should release features early and intentionally. So instead of waiting for sign up using Gmail or sign up using Facebook to finish before we launch our sign up feature, I would rather release the sign up using email address, which is already completed, for users to test and give me feedback. Maybe they don't even like the UI UX, so that I can update it before I start implementing what sign up using Google or Gmail. And then the third point there is you should collect structured user feedback. That's what I just said right now. And of course, the last one, decide what to build next based on demand. So any feature you're supposed to build, like I said, it has to go through the same cycle. So you have to go back to the idea validation, move to the MVP or feature planning stage, and then you come to the iterative development stage. Another most important thing here would be a voting feature. Probably you can come up with a voting feature. I've seen platforms like Wix do that. So if you want, you can build a voting feature or a community where you can post things or features that you want to build and allow your users to request for features. And then you launch a community that will perform a vote on features so that you understand clearly what are your users asking from you. What do they want, so that you can deliver what they want. Now let's move to the last circle, which is launch, learn, and improve. Most founders treat launch like a graduation. In reality, launch is not a graduation. It's just an orientation day. This is where real learning begins. Why? Because now your product is in the public hand. It's not just in the hands of select group of people, but rather in the public hand. People are using it. People are giving you a reward feedback. Okay, so that is why it's not really a graduation. It's an orientation day. That is why I always say you don't need a big launch. All you need is early adopters. Okay, so you need to focus on one use case, watch the behavior, and talk to your users. All right. So in this case, I have also 4 key points that I have aligned, which are launch to a focal group of users first, measure the real user behavior and responses to your launch and your application in general, refine based on evidence, not opinion. So when users have issues, have a feature or have a system where they can give you their feedback with evidence that this is the problem we're having, or we wish we could have done this like that or like that. And of course, repeat the cycle continuously. And if you don't have access to a system that will allow you to understand what is your product doing out there in the real world, hear from your users, what are their frustrations, because you can actually create a problem whilst trying to solve a problem, and you don't want to find yourself in that situation. So when you launch a product, you need to have a system that can help you listen to the people using your product, take their feedback, and put it back to the first circle. All right. And of course, this is what I believe a lot of founders out there are missing. That is leading to a lot of people blaming no code as a shortcut, as a hype, as something that doesn't work. But rather, this is something that works. All you need, like I said, is a technical partner, somebody who understands the tech side and understand the business side, somebody that can reason your idea with you and let you know that with this application, we can build this part of our application, or we can sacrifice this and do this for now. When we launch or we reach a certain threshold, or when we reach a certain number of users, or when we reach a certain number of growth or revenue, then we need to do ABC. You understand? So that is all for now. And if you are new here, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, you can download this slide deck by clicking on the link in the description section so that you will be a founder that is guided. Thank you.